to New Rockstars, I'm Erik Voss, and now that we know Kang the Conqueror is the big bad the MCU is working up to in Quantum Mania and Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, we are now left re-examining this sacred timeline of his to figure out exactly what he did to make it so sacred. Whenever we learn about one villain being the author of all our pain, every voice we have ever heard inside our heads. One who's gone by many names, a ruler, a conqueror, a jerk. It's easy to go nuts and retroactively attribute every butterfly fart to one mastermind. And since He Who Remains scripted every and to come from Loki and Sylvie's mouths, hey, maybe Marvel Studios plans to do just that for Kang. But when you look at Phase 4 alone, you can actually connect the dots among specific actions that Kang took. Actually, 10 changes that he made to the timeline, his fingerprints recorded throughout history. And unlike the stuff we theorized about, this actually looks like intentional evidence by the studio. So let us break down these 10 pieces of evidence, the 10 things that we know for sure Kang did. So the Kang variant, He Who Remains, claimed,
I paved the road. You just walked down it.
Now we still don't know how truthful He Who Remains was being there, whether he was taking credit solely for things he did or for things Kangs have done collectively. It's an important distinction, but based on the accuracy of his script alone, I think we can say this Kang variant drafted the sacred timeline, aka Universe 616. But does that sacred timeline script include just the events that we saw in the Loki series, or does it also include events that are on the sacred timeline, aka the 616 universe, as that film reel in episode 1 was labeled 616? Or since the Loki who watched that footage departed from that timeline from 2012 and the footage showed his future through the Dark World, Ragnarok, and Infinity War, I think we have to credit He Who Remains with drafting that history too, the history of the 616 MCU that we've been following. But to carry out his vision of the sacred timeline, this Kang variant created the TVA and the Void and all of the temporal tech. Everything the TVA did to prune that sacred timeline, this Kang was responsible for. That includes the detaining of the variants like Loki and Sylvie, the kidnapping and the brainwashing of the TVA employees like Mobius, B-15, and Renslayer, and all the variants and objects that were pruned into the Void, and the structure of the Void itself, and the leashing and harnessing of Alioth. But this brings up a few more implications of Kang's possible plan, because you could also say he led Loki and Sylvie to kill him and to open the multiverse up in order to unleash his variants.
Just wait till you meet my variants. See you soon.
But the question there is, was Sylvie killing him just an inevitable thing that would happen, and he arranged it specifically as a kind of dead man switch, a fail-safe measure against his rival variants, or he was just tired and he wanted the game to end, or he knew that there was only so much he could do against his fellow variants and needed the Avengers and heroes like Sylvie and Loki to do what he couldn't. Now, He Who Remains also likely had a history with Ravonna Renslayer that we'll probably learn more about in Loki Season 2. Renslayer's Hunter designation was A23, a nod to Avengers 23 in 1965, which was the first comic appearance of Ravonna Renslayer when Kang tried to romantically woo Ravonna. But we don't know where Renslayer goes at the end of Season 1 or what her true motivations are, but there is a good chance she and this Kang variant had something in the past. She might stay working in the TVA out of fear of him. Remember, there was that mysterious broken fourth timekeeper statue in He Who Remains Citadel. Its broken pieces just left broken on the floor. Maybe this someone who was dumped just leaves a broken picture frame on the floor. And when asked about this, the production designer of Loki told Vanity Fair, "I can't say anything about it, unfortunately, but the answers will be forthcoming." I have always wondered if Renslayer was this Kang's first timekeeper, the leader of those four, but when she didn't reciprocate his love, he demoted her to judge status and turned the other three into automatons. Now, of course, there are the 616 Avengers that this Kang was involved with. We know this Kang spared the 616 Avengers. We know He Who Remains made an exception for the Avengers subversion of the sacred timeline in Avengers Endgame that he did not extend to Loki.
You have the wrong person.
Oh, really? And who should we have?
I suspect the Avengers.
We're not here to talk about the Avengers.
Oh no?
No, what they did was supposed to happen. You escaping was not.
I went into his possible motivations in another video, but again, it might be because he needed the Avengers to defeat his rival Kang Dynasty because he himself could not do it. And by allowing them to discover time travel, he left them with the keys to do so. Now, you guys have seen my videos enough to know that I watch a lot of TV, a lot of movies, and I rewatch everything a bazillion times just in case I missed something. But depending on where you live, there's a lot of stuff that you just can't watch unless you're using a VPN. And if you're using a VPN, you really should be using ExpressVPN. So ExpressVPN makes it so that your digital location doesn't have to match your physical location. location. It protects your data from hackers and keeps anybody from logging what you're doing online, and most importantly, it unlocks all kinds of content that you might be missing out on simply because of where you happen to be logging in from. Like if you want to watch Spirited Away on Netflix, normally if you were in the US, you're out of luck. But with ExpressVPN, all you've got to do is just switch your location to the UK, you refresh a page, and you're good to go. And if you're in the UK, switch your location, and all of a sudden, you can be watching Vikings. ExpressVPN is so easy to use. All you got to do is open the app and connect with just one click. It's a top-rated VPN provider, rated #1 by TechRadar. Find out how you can get 3 months of ExpressVPN for free by visiting expressvpn.com/newrockstars or by clicking the link in the description below. So as we look ahead to Quantumania, we also know another Kang killed countless Avengers. The Comic-Con footage for Quantumania ends with Kang asking Scott Lang, "You're an Avenger, have I killed you before?" That means this Kang has killed so many Avengers, he doesn't remember which of them he's killed. Quantumania, of course, will also probably show how involved this Kang was in the quantum realm and its time vortexes. But I also think that He Who Remains might have been involved with every new Marvel hero we are meeting in Phase 4. I asked Iman Vellani about Kamala Khan going back in time, and Iman laughed about how she too initially wondered whether it broke Marvel's logic, but then teased that the Marvels will further explain how the bangle enabled her to time travel. And then I asked her another question, and her answer was probably the most interesting thing to come out of this interview. Do you think Kang or He Who Remains might have planned specifically for Kamala to go back in time?
Yeah. Okay, so the inscription on the bangle used to be, "What is destined for you will come for you." We did change it after that, but I like to use that as a way of, justifying how Kamala goes back in time and why that was meant to happen.
And this is a huge deal. Now yes, Iman Vellani only has a few pieces of the overall puzzle, but it sounds like if a Kang variant allowed the Avengers to go back in time to save themselves, he also allowed Kamala Khan to go back in time. Why? Well, we'll probably find out in the Marvels, but I'm guessing it was to position Ms. Marvel in Battleworld and Secret Wars to create the circumstances of this girl even existing so that she could one day be a superhero? Maybe to give his variant, Iron Lad, a teammate on the Young Avengers. And whether or not Ms. Marvel joins the Young Avengers, this does bring up another piece of Kang evidence that we haven't talked much about ever since Hawkeye. Because remember, that watch from Avengers Compound that we later learned belonged to Laura Barton, Mockingbird, was numbered 268. And at the time, many of us speculated that this could be a Kang clue, and were mocked for it. But when you go back and look at that, Avengers 268 was the beginning of a storyline called, wait for it, the Kang Dynasty. Yes, Hawkeye was signaling where this is all headed. So if we consider this item Kang connected, it's possible that one of the Kangs displaced this watch into the hands of black market dealers so that Kate Bishop would have this chance encounter with Clint Barton and become the next Hawkeye, leader of the Young Avengers. This would also support the theory that He Who Remains was a rogue sympathetic Kang who helped his Avengers survive, and in this case, alter the timeline so that the Young Avengers would form and include his Iron Lad variant. Now there was a clearer Kang sighting in Moon Knight in episode 3. One of the Egyptians Mark Spector chases down has a jacket with the imprint of Pharaoh Rama-Tut, one of the known identities of Kang the Conqueror. This was confirmed to us by a producer on that series. He Who Remains even alluded to this past.
I've been dubbed many names by many people. A ruler, a conqueror, a jerk.
This tells us that within the 616 history, ancient history, was an Egyptian ruler named Pharaoh Rama-Tut, and Kang therefore meddled with Egyptian gods and Moon Knight. And there was a second Kang clue in that final sequence of this season of Moon Knight, when Jake Lockley wheels Arthur Harrow past a poster with a QR code that, when you scanned it, took you to a 2019 Moon Knight Acts of Evil comic, when Moon Knight and Kang race through time and alternate timelines in search of 3 totems of Khonshu. This could be a subplot of Avengers Kang Dynasty, a task Moon Knight does to defeat one of the Kangs of the Council. So coming back around to that dastardly Kang we're about to meet in Quantumania, we know He Who Remains has a history of violence. He admitted he killed other Nathaniel Richards variants to win that past multiversal war and build the TVA and the Void. That tells us that the way the Avengers might be able to defeat the Kang Dynasty will be to turn the Kangs against each other. And since He Who Remains spared the 616 Avengers and allowed them to keep Tony Stark's quantum navigation tech, the ability to travel through time, one could argue that this one Kang left the Avengers with the tools they need to bring down the Dynasty. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Erik Voss. Follow New Rockstars. Subscribe to New Rockstars for more analysis of everything you love. Thanks for watching. Bye.